Hello, everyone, and welcome. We will get started in just a moment. Okay, hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back. This session is From Handshakes to Elbow Bumps, Tools, Tips, and Technology for Winning New Business in the hashtag NewNormal. This session is sponsored by Legal Ease Bookkeeping. Definitely check them out. My name is Bree Vantil. I am your Director of Education and the Master of Ceremonies. I'm also the person you're going to talk to if you have any questions about Legal Connect. I'm here to make your experience amazing, so please let me know how I can do that. If you have any feedback for us, please put that in the feedback form just to the right of this page. There's a second tab where you see the chat. So go ahead and put that in there. Do want to remind you about our code of conduct. I know you've heard it. You're going to hear it so many times, but just don't be a jerk. Or I'm going to have to ask you to leave. So anyway, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Please note that Alt Legal is not offering CLE credit for this session because of California's prohibition of CLE credit for things having to do with marketing or business development. However, we will provide you with a uniform certificate of attendance if you qualify. The requirements are exactly the same, whether it's CLE or not CLE. So we need to have you here for the live presentation only. If you're watching this via recording, you're going to learn a ton. It's going to be amazing, but we can't help you with any sort of CLE credit or certificates of attendance. I need you to be present the entire time. The presentation is 70, that is 70 minutes. I need you here the whole time. Please write down the code when I come back in to say it. Make sure to record that. Don't expect yourself to remember the code. And it must be exact. There will be no spaces in the code. We will send a survey at the end of the session. Make sure to put the code in the survey and to submit the survey. All right, so this should go without saying, but Alt Legal is a legal technology company. We are not a law firm. Nothing that we say should be considered legal advice. The upcoming presentation expresses Chris's views, and I'm sure they're lovely views and wonderful views, but they're not necessarily Alt Legal's views. We might differ on a few things. All right, as always, use the chat to talk amongst yourselves. If you have any questions for Chris, put them in the chat. Try to put the word question in front of them so that we can more easily distinguish those from other chit chat. And we will get those over to her and make sure that she sees them. So I am super excited to welcome our speaker, Chris Fritsch. She is a CRM success consultant and the founder of CLIENTSFirst Consulting. If you need help with legal technology, managing client relationships, or finding tools to do so, or using technology to enhance profitability, reach out to her. She's amazing. We've consulted with her on a few things ourselves, and she can guide you through finding the best system for your firm. Here's Chris.
Speaking of amazing, the team at Alt Legal, they are amazing. Thank you all for all your hard work in putting this together. We are going to talk today. We're going to work with our technology here. Let me make sure we can get to the right place here. We are going to be talking today about legal technology. I am Chris Fritsch. I am a CRM success consultant. No, that is not an oxymoron. CRM success is possible. Spent the last almost 15 years helping some of the top firms in the world, close to 200, 300 firms, select and implement marketing and business development technology in such a way that they actually get value and return on investment. So we work with everybody from an individual solo all the way up to, some of the firms that have 2,000 and 3,000 attorneys. Over the 15 years, we've worked with pretty much all of them. Anyway, my background is I actually am a recovering attorney myself, and I absolutely love what I do. We love CRM, and we love working together with law firms. So The other thing that we really want to do with this presentation is to make it valuable to everybody watching today. So that said, if at any point you have a question, you want to make a comment, would love for you to do that. They will be getting the questions to me and I'll be answering them as they come through. But I'd like to take just the first maybe 30 seconds to a minute here and have everybody sit and think about what is the one thing that you really want to get out of this. What question do you want answered, or questions do you want answered, or what would you really like to learn or get out of this? About 30 seconds to maybe think about what that is, and then another maybe 30 seconds to just type them into the questions area, and they'll get them to me and we'll go through them throughout. So I wish I had some Jeopardy music to play, but let's take about maybe 30 more seconds. So while you all finish that up, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So we've sort of been through the introductions, obviously, and we're going to talk about the importance of marketing and business development technology in our new normal. Obviously, COVID has thrown us all for a loop. And while it's, had an incredible negative impact worldwide, there have been some sort of lights at the end of the tunnel and some things that have changed as a result of it. I think a lot of people do enjoy working from home and being able to have the flexibility. That's, some people consider that certainly a positive. But one of the things that it really has done is it has caused attorneys to adopt technology like never before. So, from someone as a technology consultant, we consider that potentially a positive as well. And the vendors have really stepped up the technology to help us effectively market and develop business in the new normal. And so, what are we dealing with? Obviously, we thought we were coming out of this. The world was starting to open up, and then of course Delta has sort of swooped in and changed a lot of that. And so, we're still seeing the things that we always saw, but now we're also seeing new office policies, hybrid work, reconfigurations of office space, lots, but still Zoom, and more Zoom or WebEx, pick your platform. And of course, we're back to sharing our offices with our families and even our pets. And I saw this one at the very beginning, and I just had to put it into all my presentations because it's just so true. My cat, I'm not sure that he likes having me home nonstop. Sometimes he does. And this is where we are in the world. And at this point, we all feel like we need to do what matters, but boy, it's hard to figure out what matters. And so I think a lot of people are contemplating, you hear a lot about people contemplating new roles and, hybrid roles and, changing positions. But it's really a great time for contemplation and figuring out, we have to do what matters most, but what matters. So from my standpoint, in terms of marketing and business development, there are some different things that we have learned. All right. Size doesn't matter, but strategy does. You can be a small dog. You can be a small company. You can be a small professional services firm. And you can use that ability, that nimbleness to outmaneuver and out-strategize your larger competitors. Strategy is a huge part of this. And technology really can help you with strategy. Focus matters, I think, more than ever before. It's really hard to figure out what focus is important. What do we focus on? Well, here are some ideas, right? So from a marketing and business development technology standpoint, I think, we all know in this competitive marketplace we had even before the pandemic, it was really hard to keep clients. Client service is utterly important, utterly critical. And so focusing on clients and even top clients is a really good strategy. And then, focusing obviously on your prospects, but on key industries. So we are seeing and have seen for probably at least almost a decade now, an increase in industry focused marketing. Being able, you don't really want to be everything to everybody. You want to hone in on key industries, key businesses, and showcase your really deep expertise within those industries. Target your marketing within those industries, industry conferences, industry publications, industry alerts. Becoming laser focused on locations is another way to do this. We work with a law firm that competes with, for labor and employment work, with the Littlers of the world, but they do it in a very narrow niche within California. And they do it within a very narrow niche in California in terms of the types of organizations that they work with. And they've been able to implement a really unique training program and market as a separate service. And so people hire them to do the training related to labor and employment issues, but when they need a law firm, who do they think of first? It's a really smart, both sort of a location, geo, and an industry focused play. And they've done a really good job with it. They've been doing it for many, many years. If you're at a larger firm, sometimes focusing resources on the top business developers can yield great results. In law firms, we have this interesting model, that everybody's supposed to be a rainmaker and everybody's supposed to get trained and bring in business. And realistically, outside of law firms, the world has decided that may not be the most effective way to do things. There are people who are really good at business development and they love doing it. And there are some firms that have been real focused and said, you know what, those are the people we're going to give the most resources to. We're going to give anybody who needs resources the training, but we're really going to maybe reduce the hours requirements for some of these key business developers and let them do more of what they love. And you'll get exponentially more business that way. So those are some things that you can really focus on. Efficiency matters. Automation matters. There's no more walking down the hallway to ask somebody or walking out to your assistant for that document you need. So, we've all had to learn to manage the flow of information without the flow of paper. We're not really doing a lot of printing and going to copy machines anymore. So, and by the way, in case you hadn't noticed, all of these things relate to technology. So absolutely essential to be efficient and effective, and to be able to find things when you need them, in the document management system, in the intranet, in the SharePoint portal, in the software tools, in the research tools, being able to get to this information. And a lot of it, where we could rely on, other humans to lend a hand in the past, right now, it's a lot harder to do that. So again, this is getting people to really learn more technology. And as a CRM consultant, this is a great thing because for years, we all struggled with CRM adoption. And now more than ever, we're having a lot of firms. I have not ever, in the 15 years I've been doing this, had so many firms focused on either they don't have a CRM or an e-marketing program and they need one and they're working on one, or they have one, they're not happy with it and they're looking at new systems. They know that to go forward, digital technology is going to be the way we do things. We're going to get back to conferences, and we thought we were going to get back to them a lot faster. And all the conferences that we had scheduled have basically gone virtual again. And so, the only way that we're going to develop business is digitally right now. And in the future, I think it's going to be a hybrid. We're going to do both. So the technology is going to be essential for that. So all of these things, to be able to do all the things we want to do, we've got to have the right tools. And that starts with technology. So the reason this is so important, specifically for law firms and professional services firms, is sharing information is how we develop business. If we can't showcase our expertise, if we can't talk about changes in the law and changes in regulations, that's our bread and butter. That's how we get new clients, through marketing, through business development efforts. It's all about showcasing, what we know, and, our ideas and our experience. Additionally, targeting is really important. A lot of firms that we worked with during COVID, they were trying to get information out that our offices are open. We can help you with PPP loans. They didn't have any marketing program. They didn't have a good list. They didn't have the contacts. One of the firms that we worked with, they grabbed a list. They said, we haven't done any marketing really in 5 years. We had this list. Let's just use it. Let's get something out. Well, they sent it through their e-marketing provider, and over half of the emails bounced. Well, when that happens, your e-marketing provider will typically turn your account off, and that's what happened. So part of what we also do at CLIENTSFirst is we do data stewarding and data cleanup work. And so we've had a lot of clients that are in this exact same boat. They've got bad, old, dirty data, and they can't effectively communicate with clients, or they can't target. Being able to use this technology to manage events and to target the right people. A lot of lawyers will say to the marketing team, all I want to do is pull a list of our clients or our energy clients or our tax clients, whatever the clients might be, our trademark clients. That data's got to be able to be pulled. It sounds obvious. We should be able to get that list, but you can't unless the data has a system. And there are different ways to do it. You can buy the data. You can have humans entering the data. Either way, it's a dedication of resources issue to get the data in there. But if you can't target, if you can't target geographically, you're going to do an open house. You want to be able to find people within, 25 miles of that office. You want to be able to, you're doing a seminar in New York. Who do we know in New York that we can invite to this? Technology is the key to doing this. But for years, all we had were names and email addresses. We didn't know that they were in New York. We didn't have information on their zip codes. For a long time, we thought that we didn't need addresses in our CRM system. And with GDPR compliance and all of the global privacy regulations, suddenly it's been more and more important to have address information. We wanted to be able to, when COVID happened, we were doing networking sessions for people at home. People are sending out, cooking classes and wine classes and trying to send things. Well, people are all home now. We don't have their home addresses. So it's made us really rethink, how we're going to target. Additionally, relationships are our business. To be able to do a pitch, it would be really helpful to know who knows that person, who's got the best relationship. And we're going to talk about some of the great technology that's out there, that some of it you may not have heard of, that allows you to do industry targeting, geographic targeting, and identification of relationships just based on emails. And the nice part of that is it's about letting the attorneys be attorneys, and we're all so busy right now that, and there's so much going on. We've got a day job practicing law. We've got a day job, but we've also got a second day job developing business. As a consultant, I spend probably 50% of my week doing business development and the other, 50% doing billable work. So I completely get it. So let's see. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the marketing technology that's out there. Some of it you probably have heard of, CRM systems. Most people have heard of like Salesforce, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a lot more to technology than just the CRM. There is now technology called ERM, or Enterprise Relationship Management. And that ERM allows you to do a couple different things that we'll talk about, but it automatically can create contacts. It will put together a relationship strength. You can plug all of this into your list management tools and your e-marketing tools. So, create the list, add the contacts to the CRM, create the list in the CRM, plug the e-marketing system to the CRM so that you can then do an e-newsletter, create the e-newsletter or the alert or the invitation in that tool, send that communication or invitation through the tool, and then get analytics. Who opened it? Who forwarded it? How long did they look at it? And then there's even technology now that if you sent the email to them, you obviously had their email address, so you have their name. It used to be if somebody came to your website, you didn't really know who it was. You might be able to tell from an IP address what region or even what company they came from. with these new tools, if you sent an email to that person and they later come back to your website, you actually can see who that person was. And when they got to the website, what did they do? Whose bios did they look at? What practice pages did they go to? Did they look at the industry site? Did they sign up for something? And one of the firms I work with, they actually use this information to cross-sell. So somebody read the client alert and they're a tax client, but they came back and they started looking at labor and employment. They started looking at our drone practice. They started looking at, and then now we can facilitate, maybe we need to introduce some lawyers to talk to them about these new needs that they have. And for a long time, I can hear people just saying, ooh, that's creepy, ooh, that's Big Brother. But it's sort of how the rest of the world has worked for a long time. If I get a Price Waterhouse and I download a white paper, before I hit download, my phone rings and somebody from Price Waterhouse is calling, to say, hey, I saw you downloaded our white paper. Can we get you some additional information? So I think firms are, and I'm seeing some firms now that are actually doing more of that. I'm also seeing more lead generation. We, for years, and still in many firms, didn't talk about sales. Sales was a dirty word we didn't use. We used business development because it was professional. Well, I am hearing more and more firms doing client experience, net promoter scores, if you're familiar with those, and lead gen. Okay, so lead generation. So being able to, somebody signs up for our mailing list or our event, how can we then nurture that person? How can we understand what information they want to see? How can we invite them to the right events? How can we connect them with the right attorneys and hopefully down the road be able to get a piece of business? It's really helpful. There are some external tools. JD Supra is a great tool. And there's several others out there that they can redistribute our content and tell us who's reading it so that we have a better picture of who might be the right people. LinkedIn Navigator is another terrific tool where you can, take your LinkedIn to the next level and make it a prospecting tool. That's really advanced business development. We can also let people self-manage now. And there's a real strategy. People come to the website, they want to sign up for a publication. And I've seen lots of firms, you have to give them the ability to opt out. And because of privacy laws now, it's essential that you give them the ability to chronically keep that information, because in Europe, it's required, if you're going to send marketing communications to someone, to be able to prove that they opted in because of the global privacy regulations. And we've already talked about the industry information and geographies. There are tools now also that will help you, we use some of these tools, vet your lists and find out that firm that sent the information out to the list and half of the emails were bad. In 30 seconds, I could have run that list and told you which emails were bad so that you could either pull them off or research them before you do a send. And the biggest thing that I'm seeing lately is almost counterintuitive. But boy, I think the lawyers think it's great. Let the lawyers be lawyers, right? Let's not have lawyers doing data entry. That's probably not our highest and best use. So there are a lot of ways to let the lawyers be lawyers through technology that'll capture contacts automatically, that'll build lists automatically, that'll clean lists automatically so that lawyers are not having to manually add contacts, update their contacts, go through a list, add people to the list, review the list every single time. Some firms we work with, they have huge lists and lots of attorneys, and everybody is reviewing the same list, not their list, everybody's list. So think of how much billable time is wasted if everyone is reviewing everybody's contacts on that list every time that we do a mailing. It's just not efficient. It's not effective, and it's not a good use of any of our time. All right, we're going to talk about what are the right tools and talk some more about these tools. But I'm going to look over here and see if we've got some questions too. Somebody had asked, let me go up here. Somebody had asked, what is your favorite CRM system? So I've got a lot of favorite CRM systems. We are what we call vendor neutral and client focused. So we don't work for the vendors, we work for the clients. But we know all of the systems, especially the ones focused on legal, inside and out. There are a lot of different systems, but the key to it is I never recommend a CRM without getting to know the law firm. So the vendors are great at building and selling and implementing technology and integrating it. They're great at that. What they're not great at is getting to really know the firm and the attorneys. And so that's sort of where we come in. And so we never recommend a CRM without doing what we call a needs assessment. So sitting down with key stakeholders for a lot of meetings. So big firms, it could be 12 hours of meetings. For smaller firms, it's usually a couple hours of meetings. But we want to find out, what are you trying to accomplish? So a small or a solo who wants to do business development and keep up, with their leads and make sure that they don't drop balls, that's one system. It's probably not going to be a law firm specific system. It's going to be more of a pipeline tracking, opportunity tracking system. And then we work with firms that have, a couple thousand attorneys across the world or 10,000 attorneys across the world. They're going to need more than just CRM. They're going to need CRM to do marketing and to do event management, and they're going to need an e-marketing tool. They're going to need an experience database to track their pitches and proposals and RFP responses, and respond effectively and mine the collective intelligence of, people in hundreds of offices. They're going to need all sorts of different technology. So there are a lot of systems, some legal vertical focused and some not so much. And it really, there's no one size fits all CRM. And we'll talk more about the different products. All right. Someone had a question about privacy laws and email tracking. So the interesting thing about the privacy laws is there's no answer to this question. It's sort of funny. We work with firms all over the world, and some of them are subject to GDPR compliance because they have a lot of European clients. Some of them are Canadian. They're dealing with CASL, which is the Canadian anti-spam legislation. Now we've got people in California trying to figure out privacy laws. And we just had, I think Virginia just introduced some. There's some in Australia, and they're all different. Every one of them is different. So, it's really important to understand, where your compliance issues are, because compliance with each one is a little different. I think the overall best practice has been GDPR is the most stringent. And so if you comply with that, a lot of firms think that, that you're probably going to be okay with the rest of them. But they were asking about email tracking. Email tracking usually involves, especially the website technology, involves cookies. And so in some areas, cookies are not considered to be an ideal, tasty treat. They are not to be used. And so it really depends on which laws you're trying to comply with. All right, let's jump in and look at what's in your toolbox. All right, so we've talked about CRM. We've talked a little bit about e-marketing. Let's talk about ERM, or enterprise relationship management. So ERM started off as a tool to mine relationships. And the idea was it got installed on the Exchange server and it would look at email traffic patterns back and forth. And it's an algorithm. And so it can tell, based on recency and frequency of communication, how well somebody potentially knows someone. So, when I work with a firm, I'm typically working with the marketing, the CMO, and the marketing team, and we're doing a lot of emails. We get back to each other pretty quickly. We're preparing for a big meeting. But then we'll have some stakeholder attorneys who might come on. I'll send them an email saying, hey, thank you for your time. It was nice to meet you today. And 2 or 3 of them may get back to me and say, nice to meet you too. So it would do a ranking saying, okay, those lawyers, the ones that got back to me and we had one email exchange, we might have a relationship score of a 2, but the CMO and the marketing team, we have a relationship score of a 5. And if I email you a lot and you never get back to me, I'm that annoying consultant vendor that won't stop bothering you. So we'd have a 0. So it's a really cool tool. The nice part about it is it lets lawyers be lawyers. Nobody does anything. It just works. And so it evolved into an additional feature of creating contacts from the signature blocks of an email. So you get an email, presumably that information is good. You got it today. It came from the person at the company and you got it today. It's probably good. If you got it 6 months ago, maybe not. 30% of your data degrades each year. So, there's going to be some degradation in the signatures, but the recent ones are good. And it's almost like a business card scanner for signature blocks. So we used to, say everybody, we're in a law firm, we live in Outlook. We don't want to leave Outlook because that's where we live and all of our contacts are there. Well, no, they're not anymore. Now they're everywhere. They're in our phone. The associates are keeping them in their phones. I've got senior partners at big Silicon Valley firms that are like, I don't keep contacts in Outlook anymore. I just don't have time. I said, what do? I just go to my email and I do a quick search. I find the last one, I hit reply, or I go to the signature block and I dial the phone. And so the ERM tool will actually create those contacts even when you don't, and it can add them to the system. You can keep them out as well, but then there's pipelines. So this is really new for law firms. So the pipeline is going to allow us to actually track our business development efforts. So outside of legal, accounting firms, consulting firms, they buy CRM. They don't care as much about writing and speaking as we do. They want to know, who are we working with? Who are we pitching? Who's on the team? What's our next step? What's the type of work? What office? How much is this matter or this information going to be worth? And when do we think it's going to close? And that's what a pipeline is. It lets you formally track pitches, proposals, RFPs, individual, firm-wide. And so we're seeing a lot more at the highest level, so at the biggest firms in the world, and also solos, who want to just keep up with their business development pipeline because, they're responsible. If they don't bring in the business, no one else will. So those are really important tools as well. And analytics, being able to see who is interacting, who are our best targets. We send information, we send things out to a list of 10,000 people. It sounds great, right? We've got a list of 10,000 people. And I literally was talking to somebody about an hour ago. And she said, big global firm offices on every continent practically. And she said, the lawyer is really happy with healthcare because we've got 10,000 people on the list. But we're changing CRMs and we go through the list and we find out of those 10,000, half of them don't have email addresses. Half of them have bounced. A good portion of them have bounced. We get done vetting the list and cleaning the list. There are actually 2,000 viable contacts on that list, right? And a lot of firms, because of GDPR compliance and privacy regulation compliance, are actually going through their lists and saying, look, you need to opt in proactively, not just have somebody have added you to this list, and you need to engage with the communication. And they'll go through, and if somebody has not clicked and opened an email in a certain period of time, 6 months, 2 years, they just remove them from the list. Now, it's counterintuitive again, because, wow, my list is smaller. But if you look at the percentage of engagement, it'll go up significantly because the people who are on the list actually care about being on the list. And a lot of firms, what they're doing is when a new client comes on, we used to just add them to the list. They're a new client, put them on all 5 of our lists. Well, first of all, you shouldn't do that. But now what we're doing is sending them a targeted communication, telling them about all of our great lists and all of our great content, and allowing them to check their own preferences. And that way we're compliant with privacy laws as well. And they're more likely to open because they pick the lists. And of course, webinar and conference technology, right? We've got to be able to do our online webinars. So this technology is absolutely essential, but not just having it integrated with the other tools. So again, working with another very large firm, and they're like, we're using WebEx, we're using On24, and we're using Zoom. We're doing, 200 webinars in a few month period. And we're trying to track, we're doing conferences. So we've got people doing multi-registration, and we can't keep up with who has done what. You want to be able to go to your CRM and see who's attending. The lawyers want to be able to reach out and see which of their clients are coming to the webinars. And if you don't have everything connected, there's no way to see that. Everything's in a silo of data in different systems all over the place. Lots of spreadsheets. All right, well, let's dig in individually and talk about these different systems. So CRM, my gold standard, my old favorite. People will say, what's CRM? It's client relationship management. Outside of legal, it's customer relationship management. But what it is, it's a database. It's a mailing list, and it's going to help you with your events. It's going to also allow, and this is the hard part, activities to track key interactions with clients. And this is where it tends to fall down. So, at the highest level, you're going to get activities related to marketing. So marketing sends an email. They're going to create an activity across that list. They do an event. They're going to do RSVPs. So at a bare minimum, if you open a record over a period of a year, you should see at least a history of sort of touches with that individual. What have we invited them to? Did they attend? What did they read? Maybe some the open rate analytics. So we've got a little bit of information, but boy, wouldn't it be great if we knew who took them to lunch? Are we doing a pitch with them? The challenge with that is that requires attorneys to actually enter data, and it tends to be a challenge. In other organizations, that happens. It's like you're required to enter that data. We don't do a great job of requiring anything or anyone to do anything in a law firm, and that's fine. But we just need to understand we're not going to be able to have all of this activity. Although I will say some of the top firms in the world, at least within key groups that have strong leaders, many of them do care about activity tracking, and they do pay a lot of attention to this, and they'll track sponsorships because they're really concerned about, did we get any ROI? We did a table. Who sat at the table? Did anybody from the firm sit at the table? Maybe we shouldn't do that. Who did we invite? Firms that really control this do better. They get more ROI because what gets measured gets done. And also helps to be, to help coordinate. I hear story after story of, one of the clients I worked with, they're like, we've got to have CRM and we have to have it right now. I'm like, yeah, I know you've been talking about it for 3 or 4 years. Why now? They're like, well, our Pennsylvania office responded, did a pitch and responded to an RFP, and so did our Florida office, but with different rates. Okay, I understand why you need a CRM now. And CRM is only part of the puzzle because you've got to make sure that people use it, or you still run into those types of uncoordinated outreach dilemmas. But I mean, I've heard of, our one group of attorneys ran into our other group of attorneys in the parking lot of the client, had no idea. So you want to avoid that sort of thing. And you want to be able to also, categorize to target to make sure that your information is getting to the right people. All right, so ERM, obviously, the other thing you get is the relationship. So we want to, if we're doing a pitch, we want to be able to identify the strongest relationships to help us with this pitch. Big firm here in Atlanta, where I live, they had all of the major players in an industry as clients except one. And there were like 2 or 3 that they were targeting, but the one they had no connections, and they put the ERM system in. And suddenly they found out that a not senior attorney had an incredibly strong relationship score with the GC at the company. Yeah, their kids went to school together. They did soccer together with the kids, and so they were able to actually get a piece of business with a client they didn't even know that they had a connection to. So that's sort of the beauty of these tools. The other thing that is happening now that we're working on is being able to, if you're a smaller firm, CRM can be a lot. There's a lot of data, 30% of it degrades every year. And, being able to keep up with that, it doesn't require a full-time person at every firm. The largest firms, one of the largest firms we work with, they have 20 people in their CRM department, including a variety of data stewards. So data stewards are paid to keep the data clean so that the attorneys and assistants don't have to. And the biggest firms have quite a few of them. There's, one of the most prominent firms in the world. You would know their name. They're in New York, and they're not huge, but they consistently have sort of the highest revenue and profitability of any firm. And I happen to know one of their CRM people. And I said, by the way, how many data stewards do you have? She's like, we have 10. Hold on, you have 10, you don't have, a ton of attorneys. Why do you need 10 data stewards? And she said, because at our firm, we have determined that the value of a relationship is $2.8 million, and our data will be pristine because those are our relationships. And I tell this story not to say you need 10 data stewards, because you don't, but firms that understand and take this very seriously understand that you've got to be able to keep your data clean. And so, having it in the CRM, having to manage that data can be quite a chore. So if you could take an ERM and not have to have a CRM and connect the ERM to an e-marketing tool, at a smaller firm or a mid-sized firm, that can be a really good solution that minimizes all the data stewarding. It minimizes all of the additional effort. So that's one of the coming soons. Email marketing. Okay, so you might have heard of MailChimp or MyEmma, or there's lots of different e-marketing vendors, Pardot and Marketo and Eloqua. And those are really big, expensive ones, those last three. But there are some that are very specific to law firms, and they plug in and connect very nicely with the CRM systems. And the biggest firms, that's kind of how they roll. But at a smaller firm, you might want a MailChimp. You might want to use SurveyMonkey for surveys. You might want to use a smaller provider. HubSpot is another one that's getting a really good reputation. We work with a lot of clients on HubSpot and MailChimp, and they're not legal specific or focused. So it's really important to work with somebody who understands how to implement them in a law firm, because they just don't get us. It's like Salesforce. They don't really understand law firms, but there are vertical CRM solutions built on these platforms, and vendors who can take these platforms and really help the law firm execute them and do a good job with them in a much more cost-effective way than, if you're a smaller firm, you may not want to go get a full service CRM system. But they don't work the same way either. So it's really important to assess your needs and make sure that you get a system that's going to do what you need. And you're going to have to understand that it does things differently than some of the ones that were designed really to deal with the workflow in a law firm. All right. We already talked a little bit about privacy laws and analytics as well. But a new part of this that we're seeing a lot of is being able to actually leverage these analytics with a tool like HubSpot to figure out actual sales leads. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future. Pipelines. I think we're going to see a lot more of these in the future. So, and, we've got firms joining here today of all different sizes. So, you take your firm where you find it. Some firms have large technology budgets, and they're going to go buy pipeline tools and integrate them with their CRM, or buy a CRM with an integrated pipeline tool. And there are firms that are doing nothing now, and they're going to do this on a smart sheet or a spreadsheet, and that's okay. Pipelining is more of a discipline than a technology. It's a lot nicer if you have a tool that can help you do this. I mean, even as a solo, I've got a lot of solos that we've helped find pipelines because they help you keep up with your BD activities, your opportunities. Where are you? Because we get busy and we forget and we drop balls, and we need to keep up with what document had we sent them, what price have we quoted them, when do we need to call them back. What type of work is it? As you get to be a larger firm and you're dealing with teams of attorneys, who's on the team? Who are we talking to at the client? Who's on their team? What type of work is it? What's our next step, and who's assigned to accomplish that next step? And did it get done? What are the activities that are going on, and where are we in the process? Have we just had an initial conversation? Have we done a proposal, a pitch, an RFP? Have we sent them an agreement? Are we waiting? And then, wow, what about the one that's been in there for 2.5 years? Are we really still doing something with that? Are we really waiting for an answer for 2.5 years? So again, it's a discipline to figure out, how to run these. But the tools make it easier. And frankly, you can get pipeline tools with basic CRM functionality for small solos for $25 a month or less. Usually they'll figure about $15 to $25. To get really good performance, probably figure about $25. But again, we help firms find this stuff all the time, and always happy to take a phone call if you need help, figuring out what might be a good system for you to take a look at. All right. Before we get into Break the Bank, let's see if we've got any questions. All right. So we have a question. Can you give a quick comment on the deliverability best practices for e-marketing providers? Yeah, happy to do so. It's very interesting. There's a lot involved here, and we've got a bunch of stuff on our website for you to read about this. Because what happens with e-marketing, deliverability depends on a lot of things. It depends on your domain reputation. It depends on the reputation of the company, like the sender you use, like the MailChimp, HubSpot, the servers that they use. If they follow really good best practices, they're more likely to get your email delivered. There have been issues in the past with, a bunch of law firms being on a server where they didn't follow best practices and they had a bunch of things bounced. There are these organizations that all they do is look for potential spammers, which is a great thing because, spammers annoy all of us. But sometimes we end up in that loop being labeled as a spammer just because of something we didn't use best practices. So deliverability hinges on how long you've been sending, how good your list hygiene is. Are you regularly taking people off the list who are not engaged? Are you making sure that you don't have a lot of bounces? You remove them or research them. All of this affects your deliverability. And oddly enough, you can get your own dedicated IP to send things by yourself. You will not necessarily get delivered because there's a process where they don't yet trust that server. So there's some time involved as well. So it depends on a lot of different things. Let's see. We talked about a couple of these. All right. So somebody said, if you want to be GDPR compliant, how do you do that with most systems? Most systems will allow you now, all the email providers, that you can capture electronic consent. They can check a box. Somebody had another question. What are the most popular CRMs across the legal industry? And I did talk, a few outside of legal, so I certainly should give a shout out to the legal providers because they're terrific. So there have been providers in the industry for a long time, over 20 years. That's Interaction, which is sort of a larger firm solution, large and mid-sized firms. Contactees, also been around a very long time, and they're in the smaller up to the mid-sized firms. And there's definitely some crossover. Interaction has some small firms and Contactees has some large firms. And they work through Outlook connectivity. Some of these systems have a built-in ERM. And then there are some newcomers. Those systems began as internally on-premise hosted solutions, and they're both focusing now on adding cloud to their repertoire. But then the new providers are mostly cloud-based. There is one called Legal 360, which is based on the Dynamics platform, and another one from Intap called One Place for Marketing. And again, those systems have built-in functionality for ERM. They're cloud-based, and they really understand the industry. They have a long-term track record of success and knowledge about our industry. And terrific folks that work there. There are some that are also in the UK that are contemplating coming over. So we're going to have some new entrants into our market shortly. And I see we have a joiner in the room. Hello.
Hey, everybody. It is time for the non-CLE code. Again, we are not offering CLE credit for this session, but if you fill out the survey and put in this code, we will send you a uniform certificate of attendance in case your state lets you get credit for this session. So let me pull up the code. The code is the number 3, the word person, PERSON, and the number 7. Again, that's 3, person, 7. Okay. All right. That's all. Please carry on, Chris.
Okay. Oh, here's a fun one. Somebody wanted to know, are there any systems for tech challenged professionals? I love that. That's great. Sometimes I feel like that's all of us. There's so much technology right now. I think a lot of these systems are really trying their best to let lawyers be lawyers with the ERM. They're trying to clean up the interfaces. I think over the years they have gotten better, and they will continue to do so. All right, so let's start on how do we get the right technology, right? So these are the questions that we've had to ask over the years. Like, are we up to date? Do we have current technology? Or do we have a system that we've had for years and we're not happy with it? I mean, we work with firms that have had some of the systems that have been around for a long time. And, they're like, we're not getting adoption, and we need a new system. And so we go and we do an assessment, and we talk to people all over the world, and we come back to them. This is a consulting firm that I worked with. And I said, I know, you think you need to go get, they're like, we're going to get Salesforce. We need Salesforce because our system, we have bad data, bad adoption, bad everything. And we need Salesforce. So I interview all these people, and I said, okay, before we talk about the recommendations, did you notice that the London office is doing all right? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, they seem to be happy with the system that you have. They're like, yeah, it's really weird. And I said, it's not really weird. They have trained people. They require them to use the system to get marketing out the door. They have to put the contacts in. They train every new hire on the system. Their assistants all log in as proxies and use it. They have a data steward that works on their data. They have a communications plan. They are on the current version. The rest of the offices, it's been opt-in, use it if you want it, no training, no communication. You own a data stewarding company in India, and you've never cleaned your data. I said, you're going to be spending between $1 and $2 million on a new CRM. If you spent a tenth of that, you could take care of these little problems, and you'd be really kind of happy. And of course, the comment to me was, yeah, we know, but we're going to get Salesforce anyway, because that's what the partners want to do. And I said, that's fine. But bear in mind, in 3 years, we're going to be having the same conversation. It was 5 years, and they're still not really implemented. And they actually, oddly, didn't choose Salesforce. They went with a different vendor. But you've got the people and process is as important or more important than the technology. But a big question now is internally hosted or cloud. So we were working on a project with a client that was about to install a system that's been around for a long time, and in the midst of it, the IT department came to the table. They were going to sign the documents, and the IT department said, oh, no, we only want cloud hosted. If we were to leave this building tomorrow, we would leave those boxes in the server room. We are not dealing with anything that is not cloud-based. And so it changed the entire dynamic of the discussion, and they bought a different system. Do we want some of these automated features to let the lawyers be lawyers? Do we want to be able to automate our data cleaning and enrich our data? Are we wanting to be able to surface relationships? Can we do that now? The old CRMs without ERM, the who knows who was a click a box and that says that you know this person. Do you really think that's going to happen? That you know them well? I mean, it would create a relationship based on the person being in Outlook and that you had synced or shared your Outlook. But people didn't share their Outlook, and systems required you to actually push your contacts in or keep them out. And so you're basically relying on bad data and the attorneys who are busy, to regularly go back and forth, pushing data and pulling data and updating data, which, as we've gotten busier and busier, it just doesn't happen. Can we easily add industries so that we can target? Can we add that geolocation feature so that we can find people? Imagine, you're going to a seminar, you're going on to see a client in Washington, D.C. I wonder who else we know there that I could visit. What other clients might I be able to see while I'm there? And to be able to click a button and just have access to that information while you're traveling with a map that shows all of the clients within, a mile of where you are currently. That's the technology that's actually out there. So we think we need a new CRM. We might need e-marketing, ERM. We need to add some technology, update some technology. What is the right way to do this? Well, the big thing to understand and to think about is, what do we really need? It's people, process, and problems first, products second. Sit down first. I've had so many firms over the years, we're like, well, what are they using? What's our biggest competitor using? What are they doing? And when it comes to CRM, what they're doing, what system they have may not have any bearing on how well they're doing with it or using it. And it doesn't mean it's right for you. So it's the most important thing I think that we do with clients is helping them do a needs assessment and sit down, and you can do this yourself. Figure out, talk to groups of key stakeholders. What are your goals? What are the pain points now? What are your current systems, lacking? What do they do well? What do they not so well? What pieces are we missing? Do we need to mine attorney experience, for pitches and RFPs? Because we can't do that now. There's some really cool systems out there like Foundation that can allow you to leverage all of the experience collectively through a time and billing connection, and really be able to mine that for pitches and for RFPs. And then, for smaller firms, there are tools like Pitchly. There are all sorts of different tools out there that can help you with parts of this. And I've actually, we always have thought of CRM, client relationship management, is a thing. It's a tool. It's a software. But actually, it's time for us to start thinking of CRM as a strategy, not just a tool. It may not be a tool. It's going to be multiple tools. It's a stack, a technology stack. It's CRM and ERM and e-marketing and experience and proposals and web, and connectivity between all your systems and time and billing integrations. And there's just a lot. So if we start thinking about it that way, we start making better decisions about the software that we buy. But you need to figure out, who's going to use the system? Are we going to let the lawyers be lawyers and keep them out of it? Are we going to have them actively involved? Or maybe a hybrid. We're going to use ERM to collect the contacts from most people. And then we're going to use, CRM and the pipeline for key business developers who need access to that information. And we also need to think about the resources, including time, money, and people. So some of the firms that really succeed with things like pipeline, they're succeeding not because of the technology alone, but because of the resources and the people that they've dedicated. So there's a firm out in California, and I'm doing an assessment, that we have Salesforce and everybody loves it. And, we got $1 million piece of business out of it. I'm so excited to go out there and find out, this firm has actually adopted Salesforce. And I meet a guy that I affectionately call Bob, not his real name. I can't use his real name because every time I tell this story, somebody says, what's Bob's last name and where does he work and how do we hire him? But I said, Bob, what do you do? He says, well, I'm a business development manager and I have a background, in legal, and I help the lawyers target and figure out who they're going to pitch. And then I go into Salesforce and I enter those targets. And I have access to their calendars. And so I keep up with, who they're meeting with when. And I read about these clients and I put all the information into Salesforce. And then I see that there's a piece of news and a new potential client. And I go to their office and I say, look, this is your client. You haven't talked to them in 6 months. They just had this big announcement. Pick up the phone, and I hand them the phone. And we could get $1 million piece of business. And so I said to the firm, I know that you have Salesforce, but it's interesting that none of your lawyers even know you have Salesforce. I said, you don't have Salesforce, you have Bob. I said, and you know what? That's okay. That's great. Do another pilot group with 7 more attorneys and hire another Bob. And that's a great strategy. And, don't have lawyers doing data entry in Salesforce. It's not the highest and best use of their time, right? So it's all about the staff and the people that you hire to run this technology. If, especially at larger firms, there are big teams that do all this work. So let's talk about some of these additional strategies that can be really helpful. I mean, we talked a little bit about CRM as a strategy. The firm that implemented Salesforce and spent close to $2 million, they asked me another question. They said, when we buy Salesforce, let's say we sign the contract January 1, when will we be done with the implementation? And I said, you're not going to like my answer to this one either. The answer is never. You are never done with CRM. That's because CRM is not a project. It's not an initiative. None of this technology is a project or an initiative. It's a fundamental change in how you manage your firm's most important assets, your clients, your relationships. It never ends. But the good news is that means you've got forever to get better at it. So here are some tips that I use and that I share with people, firms of all sizes, attorneys, of all practices, some fun stuff that you can think about. Content is key, especially in this digital age. So this is our new normal. We're going to go hybrid, but I think we're going to be doing more digital always than we've ever done before. So this is how you're going to meet the clients. You've got to have good content. That good content gets posted on your website and it boosts your SEO, your search engine optimization strategy. It gets more views of your website. If you can, then you publish it to a blog. If it's an article, you publish the article. I like to either write an article and break it into multiple blog posts so you get multiple weeks of content out of it, or write an article over multiple weeks by creating multiple blog posts like a series and then combine it into an article. And then you enhance the distribution. So you want to every time you do it, you want to put that content on LinkedIn. You want to put that content anywhere else that you tend to market. You want to tweet it. Are you going to get a lot of clients on Twitter? Probably not, but there's no harm in tweeting because some people are going to see, additional content. In a perfect world, you want to distribute that content maybe even through JD Supra because they really extend outreach. When I started publishing, I'd get, we publish and we do it. The content then goes out in an e-newsletter. So it's on the blog, but it goes out into an e-newsletter and you reach additional people there. But the problem with the e-newsletter is when it's done, it's done. It does not continue to circulate. But if you put it on the blog, it's always out there and you can point people to it. We point people to content on the website as well, rather than attaching, PDFs. We put everything in our resources section so that when we want to send a client there, we get additional website traffic. When we switched to JD Supra and they started additional distribution of our blog posts and our e-newsletters, we went from like 300 views to 3,000 views because they've got so much more distribution. They're out on Apple News and they're all over the place. They're on the Salesforce News. They're a really good distribution channel. So we spend a lot of time on this content. We want to be able to circulate it, as widely as possible. Leverage your technology, leverage your humans. Another one, set metrics for success. Right. So how are you doing? When you put your goals on paper, you want to be able to make sure that you have metrics throughout the process to make sure that things are getting done. Initially, when you're rolling in a CRM, you're not getting a lot of ROI potentially, but you're doing things. And, for the folks that write the checks, it's good for them to see, here's what we're doing. We're working on our data. We've cleaned this many records. We've trained this many users. Until you get the technology rolled out. But ROI is a big thing. Use your reminders, and a really cool tool, identify white space. So there are tools and technologies out there in the experience realm that will let you look at use a time and billing integration and look at across your practices, where are you doing work for a client? Anywhere that you're doing work, there's a $sign, and anywhere there's not is a white space or a green space, some people call it. So that's a really good way to leverage, where can we be cross-selling if you have a large firm and you do a lot of that. All right. So a couple key takeaways here, and don't tune out because we have some giveaways as well. But during this time, why do we care so much about this? If you focus on this now, this is going to really help give you an advantage, not only now, but during this recovery that we are also eagerly awaiting. If you have the right tools and staff and resources and technology in place, you are going to have a competitive advantage. It's, technology is just that important. Had a good comment here. If you are, not a ginormous firm and you want a CRM, there's a really great tool additionally called Lawmatics. And they work well with Clio, who's a great sponsor too. We love you, Clio. So always good stuff to take a look at. All right. So we've been doing questions throughout. I'm going to take a couple more. Let's see. We talked about spreadsheets. Let's see. Pipelines. Somebody wanted to know specifically, for us smaller guys, it says, how does that work? What does that look like? Again, it can be a spreadsheet or a smart sheet, but there are a lot of tools that work with Outlook or outside of Outlook. HubSpot has a pipeline tool, and we get clients into HubSpot very inexpensively. There are things that are sort of non-legal, like pipe drive. Lots of different ones, but again, it really is important to understand what you're trying to accomplish. So again, if you want to reach out to me afterwards, feel free, and we can talk about kind of what you're looking for, and I can give you. There are lots of them to talk about. And one of the things we're talking not just about technology, but also about business development. And I've got some really great friends that are BD coaches. I used to do BD coaching, and I do a lot of sales. One of the things when you're doing digital is to make sure that you're giving them what we call gifts, or basically content and things that are helpful. And being able to share these is a really nice thing to do when you're doing a webinar. And when you're using a tool like HubSpot that does lead flow, you can direct people back to the website if you want, and then get them to sign up for your e-newsletter. So it's a nice way to circulate your content. So I'm happy to share with anybody who would like it what I call the CRM growth cycle infographic. I designed this, and it's basically at the bottom, some of the basic uses of CRM, all the way up to some of the most sophisticated uses. If you're a mid-size or a larger firm and you want an analysis of one of your lists or your data, I'd be happy to do that complimentary as well. Or if you'd rather, talk with us about marketing technology, do we have the right stuff? What sort of stuff should we have? Happy to help you with that as well. All complimentary. We love sharing information, ideas, and best practices. Here's another thing that I just love. I think it's cool, and so I'm going to share this. That little QR code, if you put your iPhone or Android camera up to it, it will connect us on LinkedIn. And I show you that because I think all of you, if you do presentations, should have access to this technology because it's super cool. You go to LinkedIn on your iPhone, and where you scan this, there's a little thing that says create my own QR code. And if you haven't done it, go create your QR code. It'll have a little picture like this, and then you can put it in your presentations. You can basically put it anywhere. You could put it in your emails if you wanted to, and it allows people to literally pick up their camera and connect with you right there on LinkedIn. And when you do a presentation, you'll go back and there'll be 10 people have wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn. And it's all about relationships because that is the most important thing in our business. So we've got a few minutes left, like just about 3. Let's see if there's any other questions. Anybody else wants to put a question in, go ahead. Feel free to put it in right now. And for those of you who don't want to listen to the questions, you would get 3 minutes of your life back. And that's always a beautiful thing on a Monday.
I am pretty sure that they would rather talk to you or listen to you talk. I'm pretty sure I would. I don't know about the rest of them, but I feel like I could listen to you talk basically forever. Speaking of QR codes, you will see these on at the end of most of our presentations for our Legal Connect. You will find Chris's contact information that she wanted to share with you on here. So add her as a contact on your phone so that if you're like, oh my God, it's time, I need a CRM system, so you can contact her. All right, thank you so very much, Chris, for this wonderful presentation and for all of your time and effort in putting this together. Our next session is actually not a session, but a speed networking event, which is really cool. I hope you will all come and join us for that. It's your opportunity to get to know one another. That is going to be on a different platform, so you will need to grab the link for that out of the schedule. Do note that speed networking is sponsored by Frost Zelnick, so if you love them, make sure to pay them a visit at their booth. Anyway, you can find the link for speed networking in the schedule tab, and I will see you there in just a few minutes. So we will do speed networking starting in, I'm looking on my thing, starting at 2:35. So you have about 6 minutes. Grab a quick drink, take a bio break if you need one, and I will see you in gather round at 2:35. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Chris. We really appreciate this presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.